So we're at 1 minute after, which is the standard starting point. So let's go ahead and begin. Welcome everyone to our first community meeting on Troubleshoot.sh, which is a combination of support bundle and pre-flight. Really happy that you're here. For those that are joining in later, I'm glad that you took the time to watch the video. Let's go ahead and jump into our meeting. I'm going to go ahead and review our agenda. And the first item is from Dex, who has not quite made it in yet, but I think we can go ahead and jump into it anyway. And that is on aggregating awesome support bundle and pre-flight specs from the wild. So I'm going to take a look at what he has linked here. I think this is from our comrade on the Kubernetes channel. Yes, I think it is. It would have been nice if you'd add more detail on what exactly he wanted us to do with this, but we're going to proceed anyway.
I think, you know, the request that came in when he shared that link, he just asked if there was another place where other people have been sharing specs that they've been writing. Both, I didn't really get a lot of context whether he wanted to be able to contribute and share, or just see best practices and see what other, inspiration to make his support bundle or this linked support bundle and pre-flight a little bit better.
Okay, I'll send this.
That haven't.
I mean, that is an excellent point. I did have an agenda item myself for a moment, at least, about writing more support bundles and pre-flight checks for OpenShift. Maybe that is something that I should take on, writing a guide on how to submit these things and kind of facilitating getting them added to the website.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably gonna have to. I wish that Dex was on here because he put it there. I don't know if what he's thinking there. I think it'd be a good thing to follow up. And I don't think it's something that's urgent that we need to do right now. It's just starting the discussion around making it more. The project is open source, but the real value in the project and the challenge of the project is writing specs and finding ways to put everything together to use what you want. And talking to folks to find out what that would look like, I think would be a great thing. That might be on the site. I think that's a totally valid outcome.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to add that as an action item for myself and also follow up with Dex and do the things. So in the meanwhile, if anybody else has anything they wanted to add onto this point. Okay, no, so we're going to move on to the next one, which is from our dearest Dimitri, and that is for a better process for reviewing and merging community contributions, which I guess is in the same vein. Dimitri, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. We right now don't really have dedicated resources to, we do, but not really. The community contributions often go, unmerged for long periods of time. And the particular one that I linked to right now, someone really did put in a lot of work. I don't know if it's a collector or a process that we actually want, but now that PR is just sitting there.
Yes. So as of right now, who are the official reviewers for any PRs to the Troubleshoot repo?
I think right now it's just our Vex team. But given the size of this pull request, I think this really, we do go through the pull requests and try to merge them before each release, if it's possible. But given the size of this pull request, I don't think we have the time right now to actually address it. This is the kind of thing that could take someone a day, and it needs to go into our planning.
I think John Murphy is actually looking into that pull request specifically right now to try and get it merged and at least figure out if it's safe to run the CI process against. I don't know that we have like a standard. I think that was just something that we said, hey, we have the bandwidth, we're going to pick it up, you know.
Correct. John Murphy is doing that.
There's John Murphy.
Kudos to him.
Sorry, I'm late.
I hear he's such a nice guy.
Shiva, one thing, Dimitri, this PR, like I know that John Murphy's gonna look at it specifically, and it's really detailed and it's great, and it looks generally welcome. What process do we have in the repo and in the project to open up conversations, for feedback before a PR comes in, so that we can engage earlier in the discussion to steer the PR into, that way we're not like kind of going back and forth?
We do not. I think this person pinged us earlier asking like, how about running collectors on remote hosts? And then he tried this approach. We didn't really have a lot of discussions about it. Like the PR just showed up.
Yeah, I've worked on other open source projects, particularly CNCF projects where they have a RFC process where you have to articulate what you want to do, what problem it solves. It goes before a group of maintainers, and they decide, does the RFC need more work? Do they dismiss it out of hand? Or do they accept it? I mean, the bottom line is they have a formal process for doing that. And it's kind of boring, but in this particular context, it would probably be good, I think.
Yes, that's an excellent point. And as we build out our community more, we may end up having community volunteers to stand in as maintainers. But we should definitely put some thought into some dedicated maintainers who aren't swamped on the engineering team to do the thing.
If you would have talked to me a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I think that one of the goals obviously here is, and the reason that we're here on a community meeting also is to encourage the contributions. So we have to make sure that whatever process we put in doesn't discourage that.
Yes. So yeah, that was my concern basically. We haven't if a PR sits there long enough, like the person will just not come back again.
Right.
Can we?
Yeah. Right.
John, you're taking like I think there's two parts of this conversation, right? There's one is this specific PR, but it sounds like you're taking that one, and do you want to? I don't know if it's assigned to you in GitHub or something, just to make sure that we don't drop this one. But then the other part being just how do we think about more, additional contributions and PRs coming in the future?
If you want, I could put up kind of a straw man process that we could bat around a bit and come up with something formal that would be, eventually the goal would be to come up with something that would go into the contributing guide, and it'd be a part of the project. But I think that there needs to be some discussion around that in terms of what's going to work for us, because I found the CNCF way of doing things to be pretty onerous. And also a lot of these projects, it just seems like it's almost like a little high school popularity contest. Like certain people will, like, for example, I could submit an RFC to PAC and it would get approved. But somebody who's never had anything to do with PAC or doesn't know any of the people on PAC could do the same thing, and it would take 2 months if it got approved at all. It'd be vetted much more thoroughly. And I think that we want to make a process that's transparent, fair, good for the project itself, and lightweight. So, you don't spend more time batting around an RFC than you do actually doing the PR. Or people don't get so intimidated by the process that they just give up.
And I would also recommend that it's not very rigid. So if it's like a trivial bug fix, a couple of lines of code, that should just be like, that shouldn't require a process.
I mean, there should be a process. It just not be as extensive as.
As an example, like I submitted a pull request to the containers repo and it was merged the same day. Like there wasn't even an issue for that. It was just literally two lines of code that were fixed. It was an obvious bug. Nobody said anything. They just said thank you.
Yeah, I've done those too. That's a very good point. I mean, you could say in the contributing guidelines, if it's a feature, you need to go through this vetting process or approval process, RFC, whatever you want to call it. If it's a bug fix, a small bug fix, just submit a PR. I mean, paraphrasing, but you could distinguish between the two. Or even like a documentation fix, things like that.
I'm thinking back to my RDO contribution days, and they had a fairly simple workflow for any type of bug fixes. I mostly did documentation, so there wasn't a whole lot that I had to do. But as far as code fixes goes, I think that they used Garrett for automated testing. But Garrett is kind of being phased out in favor of Zuul. I think I brought that up to the curl team before implementing Zuul with the project to kind of automate testing to see whether or not we can get contributions pushed or approved faster. Does that sound like an option? Or does anybody even know what Zuul is? I'm not making up words, I promise.
I thought it was a vaping product.
Zuul.
Oh,
there we go.
I'll fall on that sword. I don't know what Zuul is. Please.
Okay, so quick and dirty is Zuul is the open infra project for CI/CD for open source projects, kind of doing automated testing to save engineers a little bit of time on figuring out whether or not a bug fix or something or a feature add will work. If that's something that anybody is interested in, I'm happy to volunteer to look into it. But as far as implementation goes, I would definitely need some help with that. John Murphy, would you be willing to kind of team up with me on that?
Sure.
Gotta love that John Murphy. He's such a great guy.
There you go. As long as you keep talking about me like that, I'll help you with anything you want.
I appreciate it.
We do have pretty extensive like unit integration and end tests on the project that run in CI today. I'm not familiar with Zuul, so super curious to check it out. I mean, but I think Dimitri, you might know the project, and I'm going to totally put you on the spot here, but like we're using GitHub Actions right now, and I think we're running tests to validate it. I think one of the concerns is just we don't run them on forks because like we need to be able to mark it as safe to test. So somebody like a developer on the team or a maintainer needs to be able to look at the PR that's coming in and say, yeah, this isn't like, malicious or hostile or anything like this. Mark it as okay to test, and then it can run through the existing test infrastructure that we have and continue to use. I think that's one of the challenges right now is this PR is not been like tested because like we don't have that like /safe to test command or anything like that on the repo.
Yeah, with GitHub Actions, actually that's what I've been trying to do right now is try to evaluate whether it's safe to run GitHub Actions on or not. And I'd feel kind of uncomfortable automating something like that, at least in GitHub Actions. I guess it depends on what the actions did, but you know,
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about in our stand-up, is there's secrets in the GitHub actions. I think Carl Sorensen brought this up, devious person that he is. You could add the script to exfiltrate the secrets, you know?
And it doesn't matter what
it
doesn't really matter what the actions do, because like it's a PR and the actions are stored in the repo, so somebody could just modify the action as part of their PR.
Exactly.
Ethan, I saw in a different project you were playing around with like a safe to test action. Is that something that's relevant here, or am I not remembering right?
Yeah, in the Cots project, I was exploring like having a maintainer. So a maintainer would have to review the code and then could add a label safe to test on the pull request, and that would allow the PR to the actions to run on the PR. And I think what it does is it gives it access to secrets. So the maintainer would have to review to make sure that there was no malicious like change to the GitHub actions to try to like, you know, basically compromise something using the secrets. I mean, right now the secret is our Docker Hub, like to publish the Docker Hub image to the Docker Hub repository. I think that's the only secret, but
yeah, but that's an important one. Like yeah. That gets the
supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, it will be interesting, as this is like kind of the first largest feature that we want to, that would kind of came in to the project. It would be great just to figure out what it would take to get John to market as like, you know, ready to test, click the button, whatever it is. And when he's comfortable saying there's nothing malicious here, so that it can run through the test suite.
Yeah, I could probably have that done in a couple hours here. I guess the question is, in my mind, is the feature appropriate? I mean, does it really fit in the way that we've got our project designed? You know, what do we do then? It's like tell them to refactor it, like put them in yeah, that one I'm not quite sure, and I feel kind of bad because we don't really have a process in place to pre-vet these things.
Yeah, that was kind of my concern. And it goes back to what you brought up, Mark. Like, there was so much work done in this pull request, but is this what do we want to, like, is this a feature we want? Like, there was no discussion or, in advance around that. And it does kind of like change a bit. Well, it mostly doesn't change the current preflight functionality, but it adds quite a bit of new functionality to host preflights being able to run on remote nodes. And host preflights are preflights intended to run on the host before a Kubernetes cluster exists. Now, these are preflights intended to run on a host once a Kubernetes cluster exists. But that was my last the agenda item I added.
I mean,
did I read this correctly? Like, they don't actually run on the host, right? They run in containers. They just like not named, right?
I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think it actually runs on the host.
So it just runs Docker containers on remote hosts and reports back the pre-flight results prior to installing.
Yeah, I think it like mounts. No, not prior to installing. Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time reviewing this, but I couldn't find the part where it actually runs on the host.
I mean, in general, I'll be honest, I've only really read the description. I haven't looked at the code. There's a lot of code on this one. Like the idea of being able to execute preflights against a set of nodes before you install anything on those remote nodes without having to like SSH in and run preflights manually seems very much in line with the project. And like that's a great addition. I think the implementation details here is, I think, what we need to figure out if it's in line with, I see there's a new kind of remote preflight. And we just have to decide if that's the schema that we want to push forward with, or if there's a different way that we prefer to see that functionality packaged in the project.
Yeah. I feel pretty strongly that we need to have some way that we can evaluate features before the pull request happens. So in the future, we've got English description of what this thing does, how it does it, why it's important, that kind of thing. And then we give it a thumbs up, or some group gives it a thumbs up or thumbs down, and then somebody goes off and they're responsible for implementing it, or some group.
So a reviewer board that, so we put together a process where I guess kind of a proposal is submitted, 250 words or 500 words, whatever. We do our reviews, and if it's approved, then they can proceed to the PR request. Does that sound like a decent plan, or should I rethink it?
Essentially. I think, there needs to be some community forum where these things are discussed and considered, which could be this. But essentially, yeah.
Can it be something just like an issue template in the repo itself? So it's like super, super lightweight. And in addition, I think that, the Kubernetes project is super popular, and like they have this process pretty well defined. And I know that PRs still just kind of come in out of the blue and unexpectedly into that project. So regardless of the process, I think we need to expect that, somebody who's excited about the project and wants to contribute, so just going to contribute, and they're not going to go look for the process to follow. And that's great. So we just have to understand how to handle that too. Again, just like the whole encouraging community and encouraging contributions is great. I think this is what's going to make the project successful, is if people say this almost does what I want, but if it did this, that'll be exactly what I want. And then us finding a way to merge that back in and saying, great, it's an open source project, and now that functionality is available to everybody without it turning into an architectural mess.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I think is coming with the Troubleshoot project is speaking of architecture, some architectural cleanup that ultimately will make it easier for contributors to add their own preflights. I know Alex is working on a proposal that kind of addresses that, and I've got another proposal that's more technical that sort of adds some consistency about how things are defined, and I'm getting some push from product to maybe do a version 3 of the Preflight YAML spec, which is something on the engineering side we kind of ruled out. But anyway, those things are coming down the pipe. But I think the end result will be that it should be structured such that we really want to encourage people to contribute their own preflights. If you really wanted to go pie in the sky, maybe you could even have a catalog of preflights that you could, pick and choose from, like a lot of other projects. It's like have a community repository of preflights, which would be cool, be super cool.
That would be awesome. Yes.
And John, if you decide to make a V1 Beta 3 spec, I'm excited to see you try the new issue template around proposing it and putting it into the repo so it doesn't just come as a surprise PR.
You know me pretty well for not working here very long. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm more along the lines of the surprise PR, but yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that would need to be, we need to go through this process. So in terms of action items, what do y'all think about just putting together a simplistic straw man of this process, something quick and dirty, and then adding it, going back and forth in the group, kind of refining it a little bit, and then putting in a contributing guide, and then once we nail it down, just adopting it with the proviso that the quick and dirty PRs, bug fixes, and that kind of thing just get implemented or just get merged. Yay, nay, or you completely confused?
I'm on board. But you
I love
already
it.
knew that.
Is that something that you want to take the first stab at, that contributing guide then, John?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
I'll do just a straw man, with the understanding that it's going to be quite a lot of discussion. But just get something out there that we can start poking holes in.
All right, great discussion so far. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add before we move on to the next item? Going once, going twice. All right, going to move on, and this one is also from Dimitri. Got some points about things that make support bundle hard to use. Dimitri, you want to take over again?
Yeah. I added this one, like the agenda was empty, but I don't want to take up a lot of time. But there are a couple of things I would like to see fixed, and I think we can just prioritize those and schedule. But I think I've heard a lot of people say that analyzers are really hard to troubleshoot when they don't work. There is no logging. The files are not on disk anywhere, so you can't really see what's going on in general. And then what adds to this is that it's really hard to figure out what the file names of things you're collecting, what those file names are, and the analyzers take the file name as input. And so it's kind of hard to match those things together. And then one thing I saw several times recently is that the support bundle can hang forever, and there's no concept of a global timeout. We should definitely fix the collector, but there's always going to be something that's broken there. Well, hopefully not, but software.
I mean, this tool's made to run in a broken environment. So yeah, I think your statement's right. I agree.
Yeah, so those are things I would like to see fixed soon, and I can add them to our planning and get them done too. Those things do require design proposals, so I do have a few ideas.
Dimitri, have you looked at the design proposal for the analyzer, sort of consolidating the analyzer code and using a consistent DSL for the when clause? I think that this could possibly be a part of that analyzer bit.
I have not seen that now.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find it here.
And while we're talking about design plans, while you're looking, John Murphy, I'm going to call you John Murphy for the rest of the time that I know you. Is there anywhere that's publicly accessible where the design plans can be viewed, or is that something that is kind of kept private? All right, I'm assuming they're private.
Yeah, I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I think
Pasted the link in chat.
But if we were to formalize the process and have the proposals live in GitHub or in the repo, this would belong there.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the other nice thing about this process is you've got a record of all these proposals and their disposition over time. So if you're interested, you can look back at older RFCs. But yeah, this is just in Google Docs.
John, were you still looking for something, or?
No, I pasted the Google Doc design proposal in Zoom chat.
Awesome, appreciate it. Sorry about that little silent gap. Have we covered everything in this agenda point? Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I think we still have the file names produced by collectors issue, and the collectors may never complete. Are those resolved?
I think so. I just wanted to raise a conversation about those things because, like, I see people complain about them pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely something that we need to follow up on. But in the meanwhile, going to move on to Ethan's point about a large change happening to host preflights. Ethan, you want to take over?
We kind of already touched on this. It's just that same pull request by Crooms. It just seems like it was in need of a proposal.
Okay, and you're right. We already kind of covered it, and yeah, that is a pretty big change. So, I guess if there's nothing that anyone else wants to add, because we've discussed that pretty well, I'm going to move on to Mark's agenda item, which is replacing the CLA with a DCO.
Yeah, just kind of quickly put it out there, see if anybody has any concerns or thoughts. But right now we have a CLA that every contributor to the repo has to sign externally in order to have the PR ready for test. It shows that there's an integration. It'll show a red X if they don't. And I think that we want to move that to a DCO process. So you just have to sign the commit when you push it, and that accepts it. And it's just going to be, it's a lot lighter weight. So I think it's more, unless somebody has any objections or any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Generally, this is a move in a easier to use direction, not a harder to move direction. So I think we'll make that change in the next week in the repo.
I'm all for making things easier. So.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other people? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No objections here.
Anyone else have any feedback? All right, going once, going twice. Then we're going to move on to open floor. So this is the point where you can discuss anything that is on your mind having to do with the Troubleshoot project or with the replicated open source projects in general, if you feel like. Anyone have anything to share? All right, so I will take this time to say how much I appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your day to attend our first Troubleshoot meeting. And I thank you so much for having these amazing conversations and allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you, Mark, for being so patient and me getting this off the ground. And with that, I guess I'm going to give you back 23 minutes of your day. Thank you again for attending. Going to open up one more time if anyone else has anything to say.
Thank you,
right.
Trevor Williams.
You're very welcome, John Murphy. But thank you all so much. I appreciate you all being here. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next month. You're now obligated to show up.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Treva.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks. Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.